For letter C, we have these two chords are congruent, and so these arcs are congruent, so they're both 100. And so what I would do is I would say, okay, well, if I know that these are 100 and 130, I would take 360 minus 230. That makes this 130. And I would just set 2x minus 10 equal to that 230. So that would be 140. So x would be 70. And then in D, what do they find? They want to know x. Okay, so for x, so we learned that these are congruent to each other, so they're both 45. So this entire arc is 90, and that's the same for this arc here, 90. Okay, then I would add the 90 plus 50 plus 90 and subtract that from 360. And that would be 230 when you add those together. And so the remaining arc is 130 degrees. Okay. Down in example 3, okay, we have that the entire chord here, LM, is 14. These two pieces right here are congruent. So this is really 7 and 3. And we have a triangle, a right triangle, so we could use Pythagorean theorem here to find our radius. It also says round to the nearest tenth if we need to. So let's go ahead and set up Pythagorean theorem. So our C is where our R is at because it's across from the right angle. So this would be our A and our B. So I would say 3 squared plus 7 squared equals R squared. And if we add, I get 58. Now, we square root both sides to get rid of that exponent 2, and I get 7.6 centimeters. Okay, so for part B, you are given that this is 11, right here. This is your right angle, and your radius is right here, which is 15. And you know that in any circle, your radius is the same no matter where you draw it in that circle. So my 15 is my C. So I would do 11 squared plus y squared equals 15 squared. And then I would just go ahead and work it out. So if I subtract the 121, I get 104. Square root both of those sides, and we get 10.2. Okay. For letter C, in this case we are not given a triangle, and so I would go ahead and from the center to point A, I would draw in a radius. Okay? And I know that radius has to be 20. And if I look, I was given 24 as the entire length of AB. Again, these two pieces are congruent, so this is only 12. So here, the 20 is your C. So I would do x squared plus 12 squared equals C squared, 20. And then x squared would equal 256 when I subtract the 144. And the square root of 256 is 16. In letter D, it asks for find the measure of x and the measure of arc MP. Alright, so first, since we're given this, that these are congruent right here, these two little pieces from the center to the arc, or sorry, to the chord, we know that MN is congruent to PN. So I can set these arcs equal to each other. And I would go ahead and solve that. Subtract 5, add 43. Divide by 4, and x is 19. Okay, then to get arc MP, I gotta do a few things. One, I need to plug 19 back into one of these equations. So let's just do the bottom one. It seems easier. We know they're both congruent. This just has a plus sign, so I like that. That's easier to work with. So I plug 19 into the arc, and I get 95 plus 33, which is 128. Now 128 represents both arcs. They're both 128. So if I add the 128s together, we get 256. And I subtract that from the 360 and get 104 degrees. So the arc MP is 104 degrees. Okay, last problem. It says that in circle A, chord CD is 8 inches long. And it is 3 inches away from the center. Find the length of the radius. So before I do the radius, I also know that between C to here is 4. And then I'm going to go ahead and draw my radius in, label that R. This creates a right angle right here. So R is my hypotenuse, my C. So I would do 3 squared plus 4 squared equals R squared. And that gives me 25 equals R squared. So if I square root both sides, we get R is 5.